Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Petronella Ravenshear. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here this wonderful evening. You're going to help our audience get rid of all that inflammation that might be keeping them unwell and having, as we discussed just before the interview, with varying illnesses and autoimmune issues, which a lot of my friends that are my age and around the 40 to 50-year range have a lot of those issues. But there's a way to combat that, the human being diet, a new way of eating and living. So you're going to discuss all that and your company and all that you've found to come about to discovering how powerful and empowering this type of eating is. Just share with our audience, what even brought you to go into this realm of nutrition and health and all of that?
Well, it's a long story, Christina, but really it started with my son. When he was a little boy, he suffered frequently from respiratory infections. And I used to take him to the doctor, and the doctor always gave him antibiotics. And the antibiotics weren't helping. In fact, he was missing more and more school, and he started developing asthma and all sorts of other problems. So I thought, I can't do this anymore. I have to find something else. And eventually, it was the last thing I thought of. I took him to acupuncturists and craniosacral therapists and homeopaths. And the last thing I thought about, they all help, but not for very long, was changing his diet. And I picked up a book by Patrick Holford, who started the Institute for Optimum Nutrition in London. Took him off wheat, took him off dairy, gave him probiotics, and he started to get better. And that just blew me away. So that really got me interested. So it was really out of love for my son and out of desperation that I found nutrition.
Wow. Now, I'm curious because so many nutritionists tell me, like there's a group of friends I know who are trainers, physical trainers, and they all went and had their blood tested to find out, and also got that testing where you find out if you're allergic to anything or have any allergies. So they got that done, and they found out they were all allergic or should, seriously stay away from dairy and gluten. And they're like, what? We thought we were fine. We had some gas once in a while. So why does that affect so many people? It seems like more and more people with those particular two issues are bothered.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Those definitely are the two big baddies, gluten, dairy, and sugar. Another really pro-inflammatory food. Well, it's not really a food, but I think part of the problem is that the wheat that we're eating now has been genetically modified to contain much more gluten than it had in our parents' or grandparents' day. And gluten automatically makes the gut leaky, the lining of the gut, which means that, whatever we're eating, which should actually be, go down the digestive tube into the stomach and come out the other end, is escaping. Small particles of food are escaping into the bloodstream, and that attracts the immune system. And when the immune system is activated, we're always in a state of inflammation. So it really, really helps. I used to think when I was in practice, if everybody stopped eating wheat, I really wouldn't have very much to do.
Well, I found, it's so interesting you say that, Petronella, because just a couple of years ago, I started this journey. I hired a trainer and we looked at my diet, and I had quite a bit of bread in my diet. And he said, okay, let's just start with getting rid of some of this, and some of the chocolate was my big, thing, and sugar. And so we worked on those two things. I did a cold turkey. Let's get rid of all the sugar and all the bread, and that's it. Immediately in 3 weeks, I lost 10 pounds. And now I'm down to 55 pounds. But it's really, and now I've been adding a little bit more sweetener, but staying more keto friendly, using birch sweetener, if I use that in my coffee or whatever. But I was amazed at what a difference those small things made in my diet.
Well, you look very well. You look very sparkly. So that's really good. And 10 pounds just like that's fantastic. And a lot of that was probably water retention.
That's
holding on to water to kind of to dilute the perceived toxins from from the dairy and the gluten.
Interesting. So I'm thinking, when a lot of people have that go on, I had this maybe water retention. Is that a form of inflammation going on?
It is, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And by getting rid of the gluten, because that's what we do with the human being diet for the first 2 weeks. I encourage people not to have dairy because, like milk and yogurt and cheese, because so many of us have a problem with it. But all grains are off the menu. for the first 16 days.
Mm-hmm.
And that really, really helps. So people get a quick win of feeling better almost immediately, which makes them want to stick with the program.
Yeah.
But the first 2 weeks are quite hardcore. So, yeah. And the most important thing I think that I've discovered through talking to people and talking to people on Instagram as well,
mm-hmm.
is that we have to be really clear about our whys. What do we want to change? And how will changing those things really ultimately change our life? And if we're really clear about that, it makes it much easier to stick to the program. Really does. Really helps.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I mean, I think what became hard is when you start hanging out with people that have been part of your old lifestyle and they're like, oh, come on, let's get some pizza or this or that. And you're sitting here like having salad or something whole food like a steak. You want to go for the not so healthy options. And then people are like, well, you want some diet? And it becomes like a naughty word when diet just means what you're eating. Basically, it doesn't mean that you're starving yourself.
No.
But it becomes like a naughty thing. And then you feel like, so I think that becomes hard for a lot of people on this journey, especially if you're in a household where maybe a husband and wife, and say the husband or wife doesn't plan to go on that and they're planning to eat badly and you're trying to clean up your act. It kind of makes it that much harder because then you're cooking 2 meals every night and looking at what used to be your favorite stuff.
It can make it harder, but then again, we can cook healthily for ourselves and give our beloveds extra potatoes or rice or pasta or anything on the side. So they shouldn't really feel left out. But the other good thing about the human being diet, or HBD, as we call it, is that once a week we take our bodies by surprise and we feast on whatever we fancy. So that means that we can see those old friends once a week, which we probably wouldn't have seen them more than once a week anyway, maybe past college, and have whatever we fancy. But the other thing about HBD is that when we eliminate dairy, for instance, and all the grains, and then when we reintroduce them, it can be like the devil being unmasked. We suddenly realize how bad those foods are making us feel, which also makes us uninclined to go back to them, because we feel so good without them.
You make a really good point, Petronella, because I find that every so often, if I have that pizza, I feel bloated, horrible, and you're like, was that really worth it?
Was it worth it? Yeah,
exactly. But I like what you say here because one of the trainers that I know said something very important. Some people get so caught up in the diet and making some words, some foods or actions naughty, that they don't realize there's certain things, like especially this time of year where you get together with family. Now he's Italian, so he said, I will get together with my Italian family, and let me tell you, pasta's on the menu. It's
on the menu,
very important in an Italian household. So he said, I'm with my family, it's Christmas or Thanksgiving, I'm going to let loose. I'm going to have a little pasta, even though, sometimes it gives me some, because you have to think about the overall health is also being and experiencing family and connecting with them over food. So it's kind of like that's also a health thing to remember.
Absolutely. And celebrations and feasting have always gone hand in hand, and having a good time and feasting with our family and the people we love is actually good for us. It's pleasure. Sometimes people call it vitamin P for pleasure.
I like that. Now we talked just before the interview that some people were confused by hearing the human being diet, thinking, what, you're eating humans? No. So, what exactly is the human being diet? And if someone wants to look further into it, what does it look like getting started?
Thank you so much, Christine. Well, I did wrestle with the title, but as you say, diet in its original meaning is way of life, as in Mediterranean diet. It's not to do with weight loss, although weight loss is often quite a welcome side effect. But basically, it's a 3-month program that leads into a new way of life. And the first 16 days are very hardcore, it must be said, because we're going cold turkey on all the things that probably made up most of our diet, like, bread, pasta, milk, cheese, sugar, alcohol, oil. So all those things are taken out. So people can feel quite rough for the first 2 or 3 days, but then they start to feel really well. And by the end of the 2 weeks, which is the end of the really strict phase, they're often feeling transformed. They've lost 10, 14 pounds or more. And so they enter phase 3, which is when extra virgin olive oil, that's the only oil that we use with HBD because it's anti-inflammatory and it's good for our gut microbes and it's good for our skin and hair and everything else. So then people cook with that and they stay in phase 3 for 10 weeks. Mm-hmm. If they have more weight they want to lose, then they stay in phase 3 until they've lost the weight they want to. Mm-hmm. And it involves eating 3 meals a day, no mm-hmm. snacks, because very often we're in a state of, we've got unregulated or dysregulated blood sugar and dysregulated insulin levels. And every time we snack, especially when we're snacking on high sugar or high carb foods, mm-hmm. we're releasing insulin, which is a very effective and efficient fat storage hormone. And it's also pro-inflammatory. Mm. So by getting our blood sugar and our insulin under control, by eating 3 meals a day, nothing in between except water, we start to get back into balance. And that affects not just our weight, but also our hormones and inflammation, which is characterized by pain or depression or headaches or all those things. And they gradually disappear, which is just like magic. And I'm not making any claims for the human being diet, HBD. It's really about making claims for the curative power of natural whole food. Yeah. Food is medicine.
Hi, everyone. I have a quick announcement. Christina of SavvyBroadcasting.com. As everyone might be aware who listens into the show, my second book just hit the stands this July, My Crazy Roommates. And each of the chapters has an illustration of an owl character that captures the essence of each chapter. Well, just before the book signing of my book, My Crazy Roommates, I had printed one of the owl characters on bookmarks. And they were such a hit that I ended up putting one on a mug, and friends and family and readers loved them so much that we decided to put together a shop with these whimsical owl characters, not only on Etsy, but in our very own website, SavvyBroadcasting.com. So for that and many other wonderful evergreen gifts that we'll continue to put up, as well as characters to come up for our future books, go to SavvyBroadcasting.com or crazynestcreations.etsy.com and get your very own gift today. Yeah, I love that you say that. And another person I think I heard say that was Dr. Berg online. I don't know if you've seen his channel. Great channel. Yeah, but it's true. And one of his things he always says is really that don't look to get skinny. When you get healthy, you naturally won't be fat.
I love that. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I'm definitely going to look up Dr. Bird. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy him. Yeah, so that's so true. And I think if we could switch in our culture instead of looking, oh, I don't look good. I mean, who doesn't want to look good? Yeah, sure. But if we could switch that attitude to how do I feel better? And I think, yeah, and I think the hard part, let me tell you, a friend had said to me, I think the problem in the United States, or maybe also in all the Western countries with a lot of the processed food, is we've become so used to feeling bad that we don't realize we feel bad, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And we talk with HBD about non-scale victories and exactly that, about, resolution of headaches or no more joint pain or having energy to jump out of bed and looking forward to the day, all those things that are nothing to do with weight, but just about how we feel. Really, really important.
It's interesting as well, because when you say, okay, I have no more headaches or I don't have the joint pain, a lot of times I hear my friends say, oh, yeah, I went to my doctor and he said, yeah, it's normal. That's old age. And so you don't really think or tie that to your diet or the way you're living. You just say, well, that's just what happens when you get old. But when you change and you get rid of all the processed food, you're like, well, I feel better. These headaches didn't have to be here. I didn't have to have joint pain.
Exactly. No, we're not sitting ducks. We have the power in our hands to overturn the inflammation and to really get ourselves feeling better. And it's a question of changing what and how we eat. And that in turn changes how we feel and how we look, how we experience life. It's very exciting.
It is. And I liked what you started when you started the interview, in that you said it's finding out your why. Because I think even when I was talking to these trainers, every single person that walks through the door and wants to work with them, they say, why? Why are you here? Because if you don't have a big reason for wanting to make changes in your life, you're probably not going to stick to anything. Exactly. And that includes the human being diet. So if you can get clear, like, hey, I want to be here for my grandkids. We have heart attacks in my family and I'd like to not be one of those statistics, or whatever it might be for you. Finding that, and maybe it changes. Maybe right now it's just like, I'd like to, not feel this way, or I'd like to be a little skinnier, or whatever it might be, one guy said to me something, Petronella, a long time ago. He said he was at, and this had to do with money. He said he was at a conference about business, and someone said, "So what do you want?" And he's like, "I don't know. I want to make a little bit more money." Like he wasn't clear. And
Yeah.
so the guy said, "Okay, what don't you want in your life?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I can tell you a whole bunch of things I don't want." He said, "Let's start with that." So, sometimes getting clear on your why is like, okay, what do I not want to see in my life? I don't want to see inflammation. I don't want to see sickness. It's a good place to get started on discovering, like, what is my big why?
What's my big why? Exactly. And to remember that we're not sitting ducks. We may have the genes that predispose us to X, Y, or Z, but we can choose to silence those genes by eating in an anti-inflammatory way, or we can choose to switch them on by eating all the ultra-processed food. It really is in our hands, which I think is just so exciting. It's not a question of going to the doctor. It's a question of looking at our diet, and actually something that can really help is keeping a food diary and being really honest and writing everything down that we eat or drink in a day, because that can be a wake-up call too. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I did that. About a month into training, I started writing it down and bringing it to class.
Yeah.
And I had he looked at it and he's like, "It doesn't look like you eat a lot." And that wasn't the problem. We found out that most of the sugar wasn't in the way of cookies and cake, but in the fancy drinks I got from the coffee shop with all the syrups. And
Yeah.
so that was the killer for me. It was like, yeah, about 3 of those huge venti cappuccinos.
That would do it for sure. And
Yeah.
most of us don't drink enough water.
Yeah, me too.
And I make myself start the day with it's a pint of water. And I say to myself, if you don't drink that water, you can't have any coffee. So you better just drink it. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I say I don't want it. And most of us are dehydrated. And very often we think we're hungry, but actually we're thirsty. And yeah, water is a natural anti-inflammatory, and it stops us feeling hungry. It flushes out all the toxins. It helps the micronutrients get around the body and do what they're supposed to be doing. It's really, really vital. And nearly all of us don't drink enough. And I didn't drink enough either.
Well,
But
I know
having
I need to work on that and sleep.
yeah,
So
sleep.
anyone listening in, do you work with people in particular right now? And if you do, what does it look like? Can you share that?
I had a very busy practice in London, and then of course I had to close down during the pandemic. And I tried working on Zoom, but it didn't really work for me. And my mum was ill at the time, and was, all sorts of things going on. And I thought I'm just going to focus on talking about HBD on Instagram. And this incredible community sprang up, and that's what I do every week now. We have a live. It's my name, Petronella Ravenshear. And the live is tends to be on Tuesdays at 1:30 Eastern time.
Awesome.
So
I will note
so
that.
you might want to join in with that. And writing new books, because the first edition of HBD took me 3 months. It's another long story. And the second edition, which is much, much clearer, took me a year. And it just came out in August, and I'm very pleased with it. So that's this book here.
Yay.
Yay.
Awesome.
And there's
Well,
also an HBD cookbook.
ooh, even
Yes.
better. Yes. If you no excuses. I don't know what to make, how to make it. Boom. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
love
no,
this because one of the things we hear, Petronella, is we're about to enter into the new year. And always people are like, oh, this is it. I'm finally going to do better. Well, what are you waiting for? You don't even need to wait for January. Start
you don't
today.
need to wait. Exactly. And you can start by doing something really simple every day, like I was talking about. Start every day with a big glass of water. There's something so positive and life affirming about that, giving our body exactly what it needs first thing in the morning. And I promise that really sets us off to a good start. Really, really helps. And yeah, eating mindfully rather than mindlessly. So if you're going to have something that feels a bit naughty, really enjoy it. Don't just shovel it down or wolf it down. Really, really savor it and enjoy it, and think about what you're doing. That's very helpful. It doesn't help beating ourselves up about things. It just makes things worse.
Yeah, you get off the wagon, the proverbial wagon, just get back on it tomorrow or later. Just don't beat yourself up. But you say something so important here because it gives people empowerment. The best day to start is right now and not later.
Yeah.
And it's, as you said something else very important, you don't need to start with all at once. I mean, one small change is a big thing. Water and starting out the day, that's a big change if you've never done it. I remember there was a trainer who said that she worked with someone and he was 100 pounds overweight and he drank 2 liters of Coca-Cola every day. one thing she changed. He had a lot of unhealthy processed food as well, but she cut one thing off. Soda, changed the water with lemon in it. Lost 100 pounds. That was it.
Amazing. That is so exciting, isn't it? That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, that was a nutritionist or a trainer.
Well, she was a physical trainer. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
He was so lucky to find that lady.
Yeah, I know. When I heard about it, I was like, you really? Coca-Cola? Really? Yeah, but massive amounts of sugar and 2 liters. That's a lot of sugar.
It's a lot of sugar. Gosh.
Well,
Wow.
Petronella, I just have to thank you again. It's been so fabulous meeting and connecting with you. Let everyone know again where they can find out more about you, get a copy of your book. How can they do that?
Thank you so much. So you can get the Human Being Diet on Amazon.com. And you can also get the HBD cookbook on Amazon. Somebody described on Instagram this book as the rules and the cookbook as the tools. So you really need both. And you can, join in on the Instagram lives, Petronella Ravenshear, all one word. And we'll do a live this coming Tuesday. And there are lots of recorded lives that you can see on my grid.
Awesome.
And really look forward to seeing you there. Yeah.
Awesome. And just to check, I see the humanbeingdiet.com. Is that a website you're using?
Thank you so much, Christine. Yes, that's my website. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. And again, remind me, it's Tuesday at what time? 2:00?
Tuesday, 1:30 Eastern time. Yeah.
I will note that in the show notes as well. And I just have to thank you again for sharing this important information, insightful, that I hope will inspire people to really take that move today. Don't wait. You don't need to wait for January. Get started today. Thank you so much, Petronella, for coming to Savvy Broadcasting.
Thank you so much, Christine. Really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you for inviting me on. Thank you. Thanks.
Looking for a hilarious read? Well, check out my latest book, My Crazy Roommates. The names have been changed to protect the deranged. Step into the wild and unpredictable world of young adulthood in the heart of New York City. Brace yourself for a roller coaster ride through the trials, tribulations, and hilarious moments of shared living spaces with a colorful cast of characters. Fasten your seatbelt and get ready to laugh, cringe, and maybe shed a tear as you delve into the pages of My Crazy Roommates. So get your copy today, available at Amazon.com.